Everybody, it is Kevin and Thea from RPHLI, and the Remote Care Services Show is coming at you, talking about specifically the extra mile in patient care. It was tough for me in athletics, Thea, to do even the first mile. Run is always punishment, but the extra mile for your patients is something that they'll recognize, you have noted in the show notes that you guys can see below. It's a big differentiator in this world that is changing rather rapidly in digital health and what patients are expecting. So we'll talk to you guys right after this clip. Well, Thea, I'm just all jacked up because you and I are right off screen are talking about all the exciting things happening in the world of Thea and all the extra mile stuff you've been pushing to be able to see kind of your businesses and everything else inside the pharmacy landscape kind of evolve. But today we're really talking about how do you make that a reality? Like, how do you actually take the current kind of structure of healthcare and go the extra mile inside of the digital health and or remote care services world to make a real impact, probably from multiple angles we can touch on in this 15-minute clip?
Yeah, I mean, I think that going the extra mile for the patient is what every patient needs today with the limited amount of time that they have with their providers and the plethora of overprescribing that we're seeing in the world of medicine today. And our patients are not thriving. And, you know, when I talk to patients each and every month, it's interesting to me how much they take away and how much they're willing to do when you ask them to do a little bit of homework for themselves and for their health. And, you know, sometimes the education isn't really about medicine at all. It's not about the readings when I'm doing remote patient care with the patient and watching their blood pressure. It's about their whole health care. Like, it's every aspect of their life plays into their healthcare. And not a lot of folks are tapping into, can I help them wholly? Can I help them completely to be able to thrive? And, you know, going the extra mile can really look like, you know, if it's I had a lady taking care of her mother and her blood pressure. She was a blood pressure patient of mine and she was all over the place. And her mother passes away unexpectedly and she completely goes off the radar. But prior to that, she was dealing with her mother's dementia and Alzheimer's. And she was like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to handle her. She's really agitated all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at what support groups we have around for Alzheimer's, because there's lots of available resources. And so going the extra mile took me a Google search and a 3-second lookup for what was locally. And lo and behold, in our community, we had one. She went and she was like, this is amazing. Unfortunately, like I said, her mother did end up passing away unexpectedly, and she went off the radar, so I gave her space. I went the extra mile and stopped the alerts that said, hey, you haven't done your blood pressure yet. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Let's go. Let's keep doing it. Instead, I turned them off. And I said, okay, I'm going to give her a minute because we all need a minute from time to time, right? I know I've needed minutes, probably longer than minutes for some parts of my life. But, you know, it really does, you know, you need to take a step back and look at what's going on with the patient. And when you can do that, while it's taking a step back, it's actually moving the needle forward. Because when I talked to her the next month, she said to me, my alerts stopped. And I was like, I know, I turned them on pause. I said, because I wanted to make sure that you were good and you didn't need the harassment and, you know, you're grieving. And that's a natural thing we all have to get through. And she's like, thank you. The offices didn't stop calling. The bill collectors didn't stop calling, but you stopped calling. Thank you. You know, giving me space and allowing me to go that extra mile by turning off the alerts was amazing to her in what she was doing. So that's like one example of going the extra mile on both ends, right? Like I offered resources that I didn't have to do, but that lady's blood pressure was being directly affected by the care of her mother. And then the other side is she wasn't doing what she needed to be, but I allowed her to have some space because we all need space sometimes. And so like that one example is really taking it and really extending what the programs can really do through remote pharmacy services, right? Like whether it's chronic care management and you're just calling the patient every month and you're talking about their whole aspect of health and how you can help them, or if you're watching device readings and what they're doing, really has a lot of influence on meeting the patient where they are. And when you do that, they feel like you've done the extra mile for them, when realistically, I just turned the alerts off. Like, okay, you know, not a big deal. It's a click of a button kind of thing. But to that patient, it was a big deal. You look
Yeah,
like you have
so
something to
interesting. I
say,
just
Kevin.
saw. No, it just so many things tie together. I feel like God just does that all the time for us. But I saw something from Bryce Platt. He posted something about an ER doc that had noticed a trend, and he had seen the same woman that was homeless come into the ER in the middle of the month and at the end of the month. And they were running a ton of different tests because she would usually come in with some nondescript kind of issues that were going on. And oftentimes they would find nothing wrong. And at the end of the visit, they would offer her some food, and that's what she'd asked for, and a warm place to be. And instead of doing that, instead of just going through the exact same rigmarole, that provider ended up treating her like a human and saying, do you just need some food and someone be fantastic. I think that oftentimes we utilize technology to make things more efficient, like those notifications you're talking about. We're trying to remind someone to do it because sometimes we need the reminders. On the other side, I think the digital age can give us that level of human insight to go, something's going on here that I need to have a human touch behind and be able to find out what the next best steps are, overall. And that's the differentiator in my mind from going, we can just create automated processes to we can create automated processes that we can track trends, that when we see something go awry, we can use our human connection to actually make a difference and go that extra mile. So I just love the dots you tied together for me there. How do you feel, Thea, like this really helps the other side of the equation? If we're trying to gather these data points, Thea, if she is doing RPM, you're not able to bill for those periods of time with that individual patient, but you'll keep that patient on potentially moving forward with RPM overall. How does it help the reputation of the facility that you're either contracting with or working with? And then how does it help patient relationships overall for the way that they look at you as a care provider?
Yeah, and I think that they take grace into effect. They're grateful for allowing to stay in the program, even though that they haven't used the monitor or whatever for a few weeks or months. I leave them in the program and talk to them, talk it through. Like, you haven't given me any readings this month. Is everything okay? That's my first thing. Is the device working for you? Okay. Yeah, everything is good. I've just had a bad time and whatever. And just having that human touch is really selling the service for them to tell everyone else that they know. Like, I haven't been in a good place and I am okay now, but this group that has been working with me on this blood pressure monitoring or device monitoring of whatever kind, they're like, wow, they really stuck with me. And then that becomes the I can't even talk. The reputation that we get to take forward with us, and the community at large gets to grow because of it. So it's a really amazing opportunity to even just say, okay, I get you. Like, I understand. With AI, everything really just coming full circle and saying, I understand to a patient really meets them where they are. And they're so thankful. And I can't be more rewarded to hear that when they are so thankful, or they stay in the program for 3, 4, 5 years with me because they know I keep adding value. Even though it's the same blood pressures over and over and over again, they're doing great. They could graduate, but they choose not to because they know, excuse me, they know that when the pandemic hit, I was their resource to information. When they had a question about a new medication, I was that resource that was calling them every month to check in on them. So they know that I take the extra steps outside of just the device and monitoring. I actually just had another patient this last week. End of the month push for me is always crazy. And I found that this patient had a bowel resection. And she wasn't absorbing any electrolytes, nothing at all. Now, does that have anything to do with her blood pressure? Well, maybe a little bit. When her magnesium is low and her calcium and potassium are high, yeah, it's going to affect her blood pressure. But they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know why. And so I kept digging and digging and digging, going the extra mile for the patient. I got them a magnesium supplement that is going to be absorbed in the stomach versus lower, because she doesn't have much of a lower GI system. And I have offered how to fix this outpatient, these labs outpatient, to keep her safe and not a readmission. And so going the extra mile, I didn't have to look at that. I'm tracking your blood pressure. I'm not the physician. I'm not the person doing it. But the care part of me comes out and says, I'm here to care for the patient. And I look at the patient as a whole patient and what all aspects of their life are giving them right now and really try to meet them there. And so this patient is now doing better and really doing great things. So, Kevin, I thought I saw maybe a question come in.
You did, but I think that's a great example to segue into our question. It's really,
Okay.
the question comes from Shirley. And so Shirley, I thank you so much for sending this in. And she says, hi, I'm interested in providing RPM services. Do I need to find a provider to join, or would you offer a pharmacist opportunity at this time? And so I think that it ties in so well with you there, Thea, that you can join, you need to join a provider in general for you to be able to bill. We're in an incident to billing kind of modality. So having a provider is a necessity for you to be able to run these through and get compensated for your time. There are MTM services that can be done with you as an individual pharmacist in the pharmacy that you can bill for as well, and encompass some of these elements, but not specifically RPM. So RPM with remote patient monitoring pieces that Thea was just talking about. The beauty is, you join a provider, you're able to utilize their billing capacities, and now you can be the person, just like Thea, to be able to take care of all of those individual needs. And it doesn't just have to stop at blood pressure monitoring like Thea was just pointing to. You can go beyond that and really be able to give a holistic service under RPM. The other beautiful thing, I guess, Shirley, just to be able to note is RPM and CCM go together really beautifully for you to be able to get those things all set up and ready for your patients to say, here's what I'm tracking on this side, here's what I'm tracking on the other, and both can be billed. And then you can leverage those skill sets you already have in place to be able to take care of that. Thea, any other words of wisdom for Shirley on that provider, or can I do it with a pharmacist opportunity at this time?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, yes, you're right, Kevin. You need a provider to help augment and collaborate with through a service agreement. I think that's an easy process to get set up and get moving on. I would say that what stops most pharmacists is, do I need another certificate? Do I need another something or other in my educational bag of tricks? No, the answer is no. I'm a traditional pharmacist. Nothing special about the end of my name. It has the PharmD, and that's it. That's all I got. But I can tell you that the patients don't care that you have the extra certifications. They don't. They just need the information in it delivered in a way that they can understand it. And for most people, that's at a third grade level. So do I need another certificate to talk to my third grader at home? He doesn't care either. So why waste time and keep getting the certifications that we don't necessarily need? If you can talk to a patient in any practice setting, you have what it takes to start these services and really augment offices around the country to help our communities, because our health literacy is so low that we need help in every corner of the country to really help our health outcomes, because they're not good. And these care management services are a great way to augment what the physician is doing and really support the patient where they are. And I think the availability is endless for folks out in the communities across the country.
No, I love that. Shirley asked a second kind of follow-up question there. Do you have any advice on how to find a provider? I live in California, and most patients have capitated HMOs that they're a part of. So when it comes to that, Shirley, I think that I'll take a stab first before my expert colleague jumps in. So our perspectives, I guess, to know kind of Thea and I, we're both in this world. Me really from like the artificial intelligence, machine learning development pieces. Thea really boots on the ground all the way up to software, that she's currently utilizing inside of the space. When it comes to contracting with individual providers, being inside of a system and working as an intrapreneur is a great way to get your feet kind of ready and rocking and rolling with those provider groups. That's how Thea got her start. That's how a lot of my other colleagues have done the exact same thing, is working from within. But if you have individuals that are part of like a capitated HMO or part of a larger healthcare system that are offering some of those services, so sometimes the providers' offices will say, we already have those things that are being offered, internally by our individual systems. They may have their own contracted pharmacists to be able to do MTM related services or RPM related services. But the only way that you can really find out is to ask and to be able to see what they currently have available and to see what that patient load, if you know the patient population that you're excited to work with or know some of those patients, they'll know if those have been services that have been offered to them, and you can use those as really great segues and saying, I know X, Y, and Z kind of individuals or patients in the community that would really benefit from this. Is this something that you guys currently offer, or are utilizing? Thea?
Yeah, and I think that's all great. Starting as an entrepreneur, if you've got your foot in the door in a clinic or a hospital, that's great. If it is through a capitative HMO or ACO, you may be able to even go right directly to the ACO or HMO and ask if they have these services, because you may not, it may not be a billable monthly service to the actual insurance, but the insurance company has the opportunity to pay you direct, which is as good as cash in my book. So, you know, if you have a lot of those capitated groups, I know that there's a lot of contracting going into preventative services like care management through chronic care management, remote patient monitoring, even principal care with one chronic condition instead of two or more for chronic care management. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of room. It's how creative can you get in order to get paid for what you love to do. And that was one of the things, one of the pharmacy students I graduated with, she's like, she introduced me to some fellow students, and she's like, Thea has figured out how to get paid for the parts of pharmacy she loves to do. And I was like, well, that's pretty much true. That's how it works. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of room in the HMO space. Excuse me.
I know, Thea, that you've got to run, but the HMO kind of note, capitated elements mean value-based care. You know, components can flood in, and so there's some valuable metrics that can still be tied in for payments of those services. RHCs, FQHCs, there's still G codes that are in place for you to be able to do a few of those services as well. So you can get a little bit creative and still enjoy it. Everybody, thanks for coming. Shirley, thanks so much for those questions. And Thea, have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you guys then. See you on PH Ally. Bye-bye.